I'm going to chat today about lead scoring in HubSpot. I wanted to go through the best practices that we use at the agency, tips and how to get started. So if you're using lead scoring at the moment and HubSpot wants to have a refresh, or you've not even started and just want to know where to start, hopefully I can run through today and give you a head start on that. So a bit of an introduction about myself. I'm Andrew. I'm the head of inbound at Digital 22. I've been there for just over 4 years now, implementing HubSpot and supporting sales and marketing teams in projects like this. So hopefully I've got a few tips that I can help with today. So just wanted to start with a quick round the room, just who's actually using lead scoring in any form today? Quite a few. Anybody using it in HubSpot? Great, cool. And is everyone happy with it, or does it work? Sort of a smile over there, nod, no, yes, no, mixed bag, yeah, okay. Okay, so there's a few here, probably about a third of the room that are using it. I was looking at the State of Inbound report for 2018, which is a report HubSpot issues every year. They survey, I think it's over 5,000 marketers now across the world, and they ask everything from how effective is your blogging to what sort of return are you getting on your marketing and HubSpot questions and things like that. But they've started now, as they've grown into a platform that's more heavily on the sales side, they've started to survey a lot more salespeople. So it was interesting when we think about lead scoring and the benefits of it, that one of the stats that came back was obviously the top thing salespeople are interested in is closing more deals, but in the top 3 was improving the efficiency of their sales funnel and reducing the length of the sales cycle. They're 2 things I'm going to chat about today as benefits of lead scoring, as you may well know, but we know that it's on the top of priority for salespeople. How many salespeople have you actually got here today? A few? Not too many. Marketers? Marketing people? Mainly. Great, cool. So I'm a marketer, so I'm going to talk from the marketer's perspective mainly, but obviously lead scoring is traditionally a sales tool, but we're going to talk about how those 2 can work together. The good thing for us is that the sales team that had a tightly aligned sales and marketing team or had agreed an SLA, which is another thing lead scoring is great at helping facilitate, those guys were the ones that were raising their hand and saying marketers are the ones that are giving them the good leads. One of the challenges we have working with salespeople is they don't think we give them any leads, they think they find their own. So if we can fix this problem with lead scoring and other things, it can help us move forward much better, and that shows it's not just us here, it's across the world as well. So the way a lot of people think about lead scoring, and the way I like to look at it, is it's one metric to rule them all. So it's not a marketing metric, but it's a metric we can all use across multiple departments to boil down what is actually effective and what is working. So how we do that in HubSpot, we've got all of these different things we can look at. So everything from page views and website behavior, how they're engaging on social, and the more traditional things like seniority, sector, budget. Traditionally, there is people invested in each of these metrics in different ways. So the social team is caring about engagement, follows, likes. The marketing team might be interested in blog views and traffic, and the sales team want to know seniority, budget, the traditional sort of qualifying metrics. And they can sometimes clash, especially at reporting or budget time. Everybody's got their own invested interests. HubSpot can help us by assigning values to all of these different things. And we all know HubSpot's great at tracking behavior across multiple platforms, and we can boil all of these down and actually come out with one score at the end of it, which is called the HubSpot score. And then that can be used to make decisions from, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. But that's really the goal. If we can align all of those and assign them with a similar sort of value, we can come out with one score at the end which everybody can stand by. So why lead scoring? In case you didn't know, lead scoring is generally used for qualifying prospects, identifying people that are more interested than others or are a good fit for the business. I mentioned generating an SLA between sales and marketing. If you've ever read on sales and marketing alignment and things like that, that's a biggie. So an agreement between teams that a certain person is a good fit and that is a valid lead. This helps with that one metric, facilitate that. Identifying prospects quickly. From a marketer's perspective, it's really, really good to allow us to actually measure and improve the quality of the marketing we're doing. So we could say, we've delivered this many SQLs or MQLs, and that's a hard number, as opposed to we're trending in the right direction in our opinion. It's a hard metric there. And obviously it's going to then shorten the sales cycle and efficiency of that whole process, handing leads over to sales. On top of that, I really like lead scoring because it just removes a lot of opinion from the process. So we have it, where we think we're doing a great job, you're delivering leads, but the sales team might say they're no good, they're not good leads, or there's not enough of them. But if you can get this agreed, that takes that out of the process. It's going to help us reveal a lot of hidden behaviour in that process. So things like social interactions and web page visits, unless you're going into Google Analytics and trawling through and looking at page views, you can't tie that to an individual. You can tie it to a channel, but this is going to help us actually do that a lot quicker. And one of the other things which a lot of people miss is it's great at excluding bad fits. So I'm going to talk a bit about negative lead scoring as well. It's not just about bringing the best people to the top, it's actually getting the other people out to the side that would waste our time. So that's a bit of a summary of the whys and the whats, and I just wanted to talk through today a few best practices that I use, quite basic, but I think they're a good place to start with lead scoring if you're wondering how to structure it. So I've come up with the 3 pillars, I call them, of lead scoring, and I'll go through those now. So the first one that I look at is contact information, which is quite obvious. So form fields that are filled in, maybe things you've manually entered about a lead, so things like where they are based, their region, their persona type, job role, those sorts of things, their interests. So HubSpot forms are going to give you that information. If you've met somebody and filled it in manually, you can start to build up that profile, and that's obviously very important to get a basic demographic view of that person and if they're a good fit. The second pillar is something that people sometimes use, but maybe not as much as they should, and that's the interactions and behaviours layer. So this is where HubSpot comes in particularly. So first pillar, you could do that on a piece of paper. People probably have those systems, do on a spreadsheet. Using HubSpot's tracking tool and the contact profile and the records we actually collect about an individual, we can start to merge the two. So things like the number of times they visited the website, the number of times they viewed blogs, which blogs they've viewed, have they visited the pricing page, and then the other metrics, sort of email opens, clicks, social interactions, this type of form, not necessarily what they've entered, but is it the demo form, whatever it is. So we can then, at that stage, we've almost got a decent model there, which would work really well. So you've got demographic information plus interactions, so you can then start to say, great, CEOs are the demographic we're after, we've got those, but then out of that demographic, who is interacting the most, who is the most active? So you can split it down even further and segment out the layers there too. And the final one, which I find a lot of people miss out or forget to do or don't maintain as highly as all the positive stuff, is the negatives. So these are the bad fit qualities, things that it's often hard to put in, and I actually put in our forms on Digital 22, job roles in the drop down there are some options in there that we actually don't want we don't want leads of that fit, but we include those in our forms so that people can self-certify out of our workflows and our processes. So that could be anything from a bad fit persona. Maybe you don't want to work with business owners or people under a certain size, or a certain sector might have a huge tender process, so you want to avoid that. Actually including that in your form, so people who can download pricing and say they're from that area, is a really good way of filtering people out quickly. Other things like competitor email domains, maybe they've unengaged with general marketing emails, but including that as well on top of all of this is then going to give you a great model for lead scoring using HubSpot to do that. And that's the way we start, at least for our clients. Just a couple of other sort of pointers on lead scoring is do involve more people than just the marketing team. This SLA I keep going on about is it's not just marketing and sales as well. Any stakeholders, at every key milestone, you want to make sure, whether you start it with a workshop or just a team meeting, send something around just to get everybody thinking about the qualities that they have benefited from, the sorts of sectors that they're interested in. Because at the end of the day, as marketers, we're going to eventually pass these leads on, and we need people to be engaged with the process of doing that and agree with the scoring that we put in place. A big one is, I think quite a few people get so far with lead scoring, they maybe come up with their ideas, but then they get a little bit scared that they're going to hit go on HubSpot and it's going to change everything. It's going to opt people out, it's going to send a million emails, and it's going to really annoy people. And I think HubSpot won't do anything with this HubSpot score until we tell them to. So I think just tell everyone that when you come up with this model that this is a test, we're going to trial it for 90 days or a month or whatever you want to do. Let everybody get involved in the test, pick one champion from each department and just treat it as a test and nothing more. And I think that just takes some of the barriers down to actually rolling out one of these sorts of projects. And it just takes a lot of pressure off you. If it doesn't work, that's fine. You know, these things don't work first time perfectly. There's going to be a lot of changes along the way, change the scoring volumes, adding new qualities, taking ones out. So you're going to have to run quite a few tests on that to get it working well. And just review quarterly as a minimum. Again, you could set this up and then that's that. You forget about it and move on to something else. And I think just keeping an eye on how many are coming through. You're obviously going to be checking in a lot more regularly than quarterly on leads generated and sort of those sorts of metrics. But genuinely go back at least once a quarter and go through all of those form fields or those qualities and say, is that really something that is important to us? Is there something else that's come out of the woodwork that we really need to include here? And look back at the leads that have closed and the people that the salespeople have enjoyed speaking with and look at their score. Were they an SQL? Are they a high score in SQL? Well, if not, they should be, and we need to actually take some real data and work backwards from people that have become customers. So they're just a few of the considerations. So all sounds good, hopefully. There's a bit of theory there on how I'd roll that out. I just wanted to quickly give anybody, if nobody's started this, if you've not actually wondered how to even start, I've got a few ideas here and how we, again, can roll this out quickly. So very, very simple to start with. We would do something like this. So create a spreadsheet, a Google Doc. Pretty boring, but it does the job. You've got 3 columns here. So you start with the type of quality, so the thing that we're going to measure. So is it the persona type, their location, a behavioral interest? And the reason I include that is when I've finished, I want to make sure that I've covered each of those 3 pillars equally. So I've actually ticked all the boxes and I'm not just focusing on contact information or just focusing on negatives. Make sure you cover all bases there. Then, so you can map those out. The middle bit is just a descriptive of what you're going to measure. So blog, they've actually subscribed to it, great. Or the persona is one of marketing professional, director, CMO, for example. Or sales or financial director. So you work your way through and give a bit of description. So that's for yourself and also anyone else that you share this with. This is what we want to measure, and that's where you're going to get that opinion on. Is it right? Is it not? Once you've got those agreed, you give them a score. So this score can really be anything. It can be 1s, 2s, 10s, 20s, 100s. Doesn't really matter. I typically look at 0 to 100 because a lot of people understand that as good and bad. Out of 100, what's their score? Depending on how many qualities you have in there, you're going to just have to balance that out. And what I would say, if you are including all of those pillars, you need to make sure that the engagement scores can't do all of the scoring and get them qualified. They have to have a weighting so that often you'll find bad fits are very good at reading your blog and opening your emails and sort of coming back to the site lots and lots. So you don't want to overscore that because you'll end up having loads of SQLs and you'll go, these guys are just obsessed with reading our blog. So you want to make sure that the engagement scores are a little bit lower than the demographic scores so that they outweigh it. And then I've got at the top there, as you can see, positives, and then at the bottom, negatives. Very, very simple. If anyone wants a copy of what we use, it's got some drop downs. Give me a shout and I can share this with you. And this can be as long or as short as you want. And this is a working document, something you're going to send around and get everybody to chuck their ideas in. Add comments and really make it a working document that you can keep updated over time. The reason I start with a spreadsheet rather than going straight in and build it in on HubSpot is there's nothing worse than building the whole model in HubSpot and then your boss, the managing director or whatever says, I don't like it, change it all. So start here, get it signed off and then build it. That'd be my advice there. Once you've done that, as I've mentioned, decide thresholds. So this is roughly how we look at it as well. So 0 to 100, Anything above 30, you might want to, this is just my ideas. Everyone's got their own sales process and a way of doing it, but anything plus 30, MQL, up to 60, so 41 to 60, a high scoring MQL, so somebody that's a really qualified, marketing qualified lead, and then anything plus 60 becomes sales qualified. And then when you get into the highs, the 70s, you might call them like your hot leads, your high scoring SQLs. You may start off with the sales team actually manually setting sales qualified leads on their basis. That's fine. This may be an end state where you can agree that that is fair and let HubSpot do a bit of the work for you. Just an idea of how we do it. And then when you're really happy and works perfectly, you've set up some lists and you're really confident that these are the right pots to have, you can actually automate HubSpot to carry out some of this work for you. So this is really down the line once you're really happy with it. I wouldn't advise doing this in the first run because it's not going to be correct. So once you're happy with it, by workflow, HubSpot, again, as I mentioned, HubSpot won't do anything with the HubSpot score on its own. It's just a quality in the back end. But once you tell HubSpot to read that score and set those thresholds, so anybody that becomes in your buckets can be set to an MQL, an SQL, or do nothing until they qualify. Once you've got that set up, you're sort of laughing, you can sit back and see things sort of categorized, and that really helps with your reporting. But that is probably an end state once everything's been verified and you're happy. A few more tips with lead scoring. Definitely set up some smart lists. This is an area of ours. We've got a folder called lead scoring, basic stuff, but have an MQL list and SQLs. As I mentioned, those high scoring of both. These will be smart lists that constantly populate. Really good to bookmark, quick access. If anybody's asking how many SQLs have we got this month, you can jump in there and add a date range and get that data really quickly rather than having to troll through your contact records or whatever it is, or your emails, whatever you want to do. That's a good tip there. And then where do you find it? Where do you put it? So it will start in the back end of HubSpot. You won't find it on the contact record itself, but if you view all properties on the left-hand side, scroll, search for HubSpot score and add that to the profile. That's a really good place to put for anybody that's getting notifications of leads or is in the contact area or the CRM. The sales team can jump in and quickly see what the score is. You could have the lifecycle stage below as well if you needed to. That's quite handy to have in case anybody wants to know how are we scoring people. So, sort of rattled through there. I just wanted to do a quick recap of what I've mentioned today. Why lead scoring? So obviously it's his top priority for sales teams worldwide and it's getting more and more important, and I think once you do start generating a decent volume of leads, it becomes very, very powerful to be able to break them down, separate them out. You're going to identify them much quicker, both as marketing and sales teams, and it's going to just help you report and then justify what you've been doing. There's no sort of discussion to be had once that's agreed, you've done it. And automating HubSpot, once it knows the score, you can do all sorts with it. You could do whatever you want with that score, but it just unlocks a lot of potential in HubSpot as well. Some of the best practices, so make sure you categorize, or if you fancy it, categorize by those 3 pillars. It covers all bases, and it means that you're going to be actually using the full power of HubSpot to actually score your contacts. Agree that plan with sales and marketing at a minimum and any of the stakeholders, just so you get that agreement in a meeting, because that's just going to help you long term. And definitely treat it as a test. It's not going to be right first time or probably even second time. So just run a few tests, review it quarterly once you're happy with it, and keep updating that spreadsheet. And yeah, just with getting started, don't start in HubSpot, don't bother, it won't be right. So get that spreadsheet up and running and use that, get that signed off, hit those thresholds and try your best to stick to them. Don't move the goalposts too much or else it just devalues the whole thing. And get your lists organised, add them to the contact profile, and you should be all set up, have everything organised. So bit of a whistle-stop tour there. I'm bang on 20 minutes, so I think I'm about done. Cheers.